We've given a sort of very quick summary for what has happened over the last sort of 2 years. It has been really a massive story. And this rebirth really began on the shores of Wilhelmshaven about a year ago with the first LNG shipments coming into Germany. Where are we on this journey?
Well, as you said, Oliver, it's been an enormous challenge for Uniper and for Uniper's people. And kudos to all of our staff who's really done a great job in managing the company through these incredibly turbulent times. As you said, the fundamental problem Uniper had was the fact that the Russian gas was no longer flowing, and we were the counterparty to many of those long-term gas contracts. That meant that we no longer had the gas to sell to our customers. It meant that gas prices spiked, and it meant Uniper had a very serious financial problem, and the government stepped in. Since then, we've announced a new strategy, and we've also managed the risks in the portfolio coming out of that reduction in Russian gas flows. So we've managed to hedge all of the gas, so we've stabilised the company financially. And now we're rebuilding, and we're rebuilding a company which faces into the energy transition, which will create a company that is green and flexible and will deliver the flexible generation and the flexible green gases that are needed for the energy transition.
And a huge part of that, of course, and this is a huge priority for the German government, with a lot of this money that has now been pulled off of the table in this court ruling. Do you think that this threatens the energy transition in Germany? How does this impact that process?
Well, I think short term, clearly it's a challenge, and it's a challenge the government is now addressing. But if you look at the fundamentals and the long-term perspective, it doesn't really change anything. We know we have to get off fossil fuels. We know we have to massively reduce CO2 emissions and get climate neutral by 2045 in Germany. And that means a number of policies have to be implemented to deliver that. Most importantly, in the short term, we've got the challenge of the so-called Kraftwerk strategy, where we have to build around 25 to 30 gigawatts of new gas-fired capacity, some of which will be immediately hydrogen ready, some of which will be convertible to hydrogen or other green gases. I don't think those policies are fundamentally affected, but clearly the government has...
Does it affect any of your projects right now?
Not right now, but of course we're analysing the situation very carefully. Our strategy is founded upon the necessity to convert our fossil fuel-fired capacity, and we have a very large amount of coal in the portfolio. We will be closing that coal-fired capacity, and it's not just in Germany, it's across Europe. We will be closing that capacity, replacing it with flexible green generation. And that, in the short term, of course, needs government policy to implement the necessary markets.
And on that government policy, you have a sort of global perspective on this energy transition. Who is doing the best job as a government to attract this and make this happen?
I wouldn't say there's any specific government. What I'd say is there are good policy practices in different government areas. For instance, if you look at the UK, they've been very successful with the so-called contract for differences policy to encourage offshore wind. They've also had a very effective capacity market in power. And Germany can learn from both of those things, you know, with a capacity market, which successfully works in the UK to replace coal with flexible generation, and a CFD mechanism, which we think would be useful for converting gas storage into green gas storage.
And then in terms of the company itself, is this a company that can stand on its own 2 feet? Is this a moment the German government came to rescue Uniper? Now the German government is in crisis, needs funding. Is this a good time to think about selling that stake and getting that funding into the German government?
Well, the German government has to sell the stake anyway. By the end of 2028, according to the EU Commission, they have to sell down to 25% plus 1 share. That was a condition of the state aid. Of course, our job as management is to make sure that the company is in a robust financial position.
Is it ready to go?
Well, we have a clear strategy. We have an excellent financial position. This year, we've stabilised the balance sheet. We'll have an excellent financial result. So we're very confident that the company is now in a far better position than it was a year ago. But there are a number of things that need to be done before any sale can take place. But in the end, that's a choice the German government has to make. We as management, our job is to define the strategy and execute it.
But it's your job to tell them whether or not it's an advisable and a good moment to do so.
Indeed. And what we're saying is we have a coherent strategy. We're starting to deliver it, and we're demonstrating that we are financially stable and becoming an environmentally sustainable company.
And I want to talk about the gas market a little bit more broadly. Gas demand is not back to where it was anywhere close, and gas pricing is the big unknown. What is the reasonable gas price for this new post-Nord Stream, post-Russian world here in Europe and Germany?
Well, as you said, it's very, very difficult to judge. What I would say is the gas price today is roughly double what it was before the crisis. Of course, it's much, much lower than it was at the height of the crisis last year. So we're now looking at around 50 euros a megawatt hour. It was around about 20 pre-crisis, up to over 200 in the middle of the crisis. So I think the most important thing is we are still in a challenging situation. You can't take 40% of European gas supply out of the supply curve and not expect to have an effect. We have reacted very quickly, and we've done a number of things which have improved that situation. We have full storage, and our storage at Uniper is also full. We've built new regas capacity like Wilhelmshaven, which we built in super quick time last year. And we have reduced gas demand. But there's no doubt about it, until significantly more LNG volumes come onto the market, there is going to be a tight situation.
And on that point of LNG volumes, you have Shell, Eni, and some of these other companies who have signed nearly 30-year contracts with Qatar. No one in Germany has done that. No one is more sensitive to the spot market and its risks than perhaps you and Germany. Are you intending to sign those kinds of deals with the Qataris?
Well, the challenge we have at the moment is, of course, is the uncertainty, long-term uncertainty over gas demand, because our ultimate aim is to get off gas and move to the hydrogen economy, probably starting with blue hydrogen, then moving to green hydrogen. And as we electrify the economy, as we electrify heating, for instance, gas demand will peak in the 2030s and then start to fall. So we have to make judgments about what the right contractual position should be, what the right indexation should be. We're making those judgments all the time, and we have signed some gas contracts, and we still do have long-term contracts in our portfolio which are LNG. But we're constantly assessing this balance between supply and demand, and how much long-term gas versus gas purchases on the wholesale market versus green gas we have in our portfolio.
Right. Well, Michael Lewis, the CEO of Uniper, thank you so much for joining us.